So welcome everyone to Focusing on Evidence and of Learning, Grade 3, Weather and Climate. This session, folks, is geared for new teachers, those who have started teaching Amplify this year or sometime during this year. So welcome everyone. For those of you I have not met, my name is Reshma, Learning Specialist here at Amplify. I've had the pleasure of supporting educators like yourself in implementing this program for the past couple of years, and I hope to do the same for you today. Thank you all for introducing yourself. And just to remind you, if you weren't aware of already, that this is a 1-hour session. The first hour is a professional learning session followed by open Q&A. So if there's any questions that remain unanswered from today's 1-hour session, feel free to stick by then. I'm happy to answer. Or if you have any other tangential questions, not necessarily related to the flow of today's workshop, you can go ahead and put a pin on those and stay during that time. But it's a fairly small group so far, so I do anticipate responding to as many of your needs, questions, concerns as I can, since it seems like we're a pretty small group today. So welcome, everyone. Just some norms so we can have a productive workshop. If you can, please have your camera on. That just helps build camaraderie in the room, and it helps me gauge how you all are doing from non-body language, anything nods or whatnot. So if you can, that's completely optional. Thank you all for muting your background, muting your microphone. That reduces background noise. Seems like most folks have found the chat. We will be using the chat quite a bit, but if at any point I do welcome voices other than my own, so please do come off of mute to ask questions, answer questions, share thoughts and ideas. I do want to emphasize I am by no means the expert in this room. The expertise is within the room, so we want to make sure we really leverage that today. So we do need to hear from you. The goals of today's workshop, this 1-hour workshop, are twofold. Basically, we're going to be exploring the different assessment activities in this last unit of 3rd grade to really start understanding the connections between 3D learning, multiple modalities, and the connection to evidence of student progress. Also, specifically, we're going to be planning for specific student assessment opportunities in this unit and start to understand how these opportunities really give us a chance to gain visibility into students' thinking in terms of how well they're able to explain the unit phenomena. We're going to begin by framing the day. Here's a brief agenda so we can try our best to achieve those objectives I just went over. So for framing the day, I'd like for us to please meet on a Jamboard, and on that Jamboard, if folks can post an example of something you consider to be evidence of learning. So allow me a minute to go ahead and post the Jamboard link in the chat, and I will virtually see everybody there. It's in the chat right now. We will be using this Jamboard quite a bit today, so you can go ahead and have that open as a separate tab or window. And I'll wait for folks to join. I see folks are slowly joining. Great. And if you are new to Jamboard, there's one of two ways you can post something. It's basically a whiteboard. I suggest the sticky note method. Let's stick to that. If you're new to it, click the sticky note and you can change your colors. I'll just stick with yellow, post your idea, and you can click save. And you'll see it automatically goes to the Jamboard. So I'm going to give folks a minute or two to go ahead and provide an example of something you consider to be evidence of learning in the specific instructional context you're in, whether it be remote, hybrid, or in person. I'll give folks about 2 to 3 minutes to share their ideas on the Jamboard. Give folks about under a minute to finish posting their thoughts, and then we'll come back to.
Hi, I cannot type on the Jamboard.
Oh, okay, let me take a look right here. Thanks for letting me know. So if you're new to the Jamboard, you can just go ahead and click a sticky note right here. And you can change the color and type your ideas. And then if you click save, it'll go on the Jamboard. I hope that helps. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and begin voicing what I see on the Jamboard. Different evidence of learning that educators have been utilizing. I see essay samples, quizzes, students being able to discuss thinking with their class by referring back to the models and other materials we use to investigate the phenomena question, right? Sharing thoughts and ideas on the subject, teacher observations. Thank you all for sharing. And as we look right here, this really runs the gamut between summative and formative assessment and also direct and indirect forms of evidence of student learning. The more direct versions like your writing, your formal assessments. And then we have teacher observations, collaborations, those more informal opportunities for you to really gain visibility into student thinking. So it seems like we're already implementing the gamut of options for gaining visibility into student thinking. And we're going to look at that more closely on how that can be done in this last unit of third grade. Thank you all for sharing that. So today's session is really also going to focus on how you can assess the 3 dimensions of student learning, of figuring out and amplify science. But before we do that, let's go ahead and review the approach and take a look at where we can gain some more understanding of the 3 dimensions of your unit. So you may want to take some notes today. This is just, again, this is just a sample note catcher. Maybe you want to open up a Google Doc. Maybe you're a pen and paper person. So questions, reflections, connections, and some notes here if you'd like. So the Amplify Science approach. Again, this session is geared for year 1 teachers. So you may or may not have seen this in previous sessions. If you have, this is a pretty common graphic. This is the Amplify Science approach. And just to summarize the approach, remember at the beginning of each unit, the kiddos are introduced to a phenomena and a connected and a related real world problem. And through the course of the 22 lessons or so, they collect evidence from multiple sources represented by these bricks. And as they collect more and more evidence, they're able to build a more and more complex explanation. And this happens over and over again, hence the arrows in this iterative cycle, until they come up with this really complex, causal, and sophisticated explanation to that problem. And very often at the end of the unit, they're given a chance to apply what they've learned to some brand new problem. And that really gives you an opportunity as an educator to see has deep learning occurred. And these arrows, as I've mentioned, also represent our multimodal approach. Students are collecting evidence by doing, talking, reading, writing, visualizing. And by the way, they engage in at least 3 of those modalities for each of those big key concepts that they figure out. So what's the particular unit problem and phenomena for this last unit of third grade? So this is again, this is a session for first-year Amplify Science teachers, so you haven't seen this unit yet. So in this particular unit, what's the student role? The kids inhabit the role of a meteorologist, and as meteorologists, they gather evidence and analyze weather patterns so they can advise the Wildlife Protection Organization, which is a fictional organization, and helping them select a reserve for orangutans. As they do this, they need to look for location-based patterns in weather and figure out if it's possible to design solutions that can prevent damage from hurricanes and other natural hazards. And that's that brand new problem that's presented at the end. So not only are they figuring out this problem multimodally, they're also using the 3 dimensions of the next generation science standards in New York, adopted as the New York State Science Learning Standards. So these standards were really meant to help kids really build this cohesive understanding of science through these 3 dimensions. So as a reminder, students are figuring out core ideas, traditionally known as content, through engaging in those same practices that scientists and engineers do. Here are the practices through those big ideas, the cross-cutting concepts. And these are ideas that are not only pertain to science, but really pertain to other disciplines as well. Hence, they're called cross-cutting concepts. So what does this have to do with today's session? In today's session, again, we are going to make connections with the dimensions, these 3 dimensions, and the specific assessment opportunities within this unit. And to help us do that in Amplify Science, we have a resource called 3D Assessment Objectives. And I'm going to go ahead and navigate to that for you. And again, during today's session, if you haven't been in my previous sessions, please know that I usually demonstrate something and give you a chance to practice and reflect. So please follow along for now, and you'll get a chance to look at this on your own momentarily. When you go to the Amplify Science curriculum, I'm going to click Weather and Climate. That's the unit we're going to be focusing on today. And as that takes a moment to load, I just want to pause to see if there's any questions. Thank you for your patience as I wait to log in. Usually when this happens, I like to just start over again. I find that if I minimize the number of tabs I have open, it usually takes a shorter amount of time. Okay, so we're going to go to 3rd grade. We'll just cross in quickly. Once we're in the unit, that's not this tab. Once we're in the unit, we're going to go to the unit landing page and go to this particular document 3D assessment opportunities. There we go. Seems like closing that tab helped. So as we go down right here, it's that first printable resource, and it's in every single unit. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up. It's called 3D Assessment Objectives. I'll give you a chance to read this on your own, but here's the key. These are the different labels for each of the different types of assessments. And as you go down, here are the meat and potatoes of this particular document. You'll see that overall, it gives you the focal performance expectations for this unit. And if I go to the 2nd page, it color codes them. So blue is the science and engineering practice, green is the cross-cutting concepts, and orange is the disciplinary core idea. And what's nice here, it tells you in which assessment opportunities are each of these dimensions assessed. And not only does it give you that for the particular unit you're in, it gives you it for the grade bands too. So the other units in 3rd grade, and if applicable to other units in the other grades. So as you can see, patterns is assessed in these units, in these assessment opportunities for weather and climate. You see all of these acronyms. Again, these acronyms describe the assessment. So OTFA is an on-the-fly assessment, CJ is critical juncture, etc. The key is there for you. So I'm going to give you a chance to go ahead and take a look at the 3D assessment objectives. And then after you've done that, if you can go ahead and go back to the Jamboard, I'll go ahead, the original Jamboard that we were using for the anticipatory activity, I'll go ahead and navigate that. You're going to see if you go to the 2nd page, back on the Jamboard, there is a graphic that looks like this. If you can go ahead and use this right here, this, this resource, and on a Post-it, record the lesson and specific 3D aspect, then stick it on the proper line. So just so we can practice using this. So for example, I'll give you an example. So patterns is assessed in the pre-unit assessment in activity 2. So I can write, get a Post-it. I'll put the Post-it there. Oops. Post-it, patterns, pre-unit assessment, and and this is a cross-cutting concept, so I'll put cross-cutting concept. Save, and I can put it at the edge here. And since I did cross-cutting concept, I'm going to put it under green. So if we can all go ahead and do that, go ahead and open this up, choose at least one of the dimensions, and mention a assessment that assesses this particular dimension. And I'll give folks a few minutes to do that, but I'll go ahead and pause to see if there are any questions. Okay, I'll give folks about 5 minutes to go ahead and explore that resource. I'm going on mute, but I'm still here in case you have any questions about the task at hand or anything else. We'll come back together in 5. Folks, this particular, it seems like we are on a roll here. You don't have to go further than we're just taking it one step at a time, and just as others have done here. For this particular exercise, I just wanted us to gain awareness of this particular resource and, more importantly, understand how it's used in terms of how are the 3 dimensions and in which assessment opportunities are they assessed. So it seems like folks have already been doing that. So for example, I put a example here. Again, patterns. This is the second performance expectation. And patterns in weather and climate is actually assessed in the pre-unit assessment in the very first activity. And again, this is a 1-hour session, so the intent is to go ahead and get started on certain exercises, and the hope is that we can certainly continue to work on this more during the open office hours or during your self-study or collaborative planning time. So thank you all for engaging in that briefly. I just want to pause to see, I know there were some questions coming in privately during the work time. Does anybody have any questions that I can address? And I'll go ahead. This is also an opportunity for me to check the chat. Just know while I'm facilitating, I'm not always able to see the chat right away. So this is also an opportunity to see if I missed anything and for you to come off with mute so I can better understand any needs that you have. Okay, seems like we're good. Okay, so now that we have a somewhat better understanding of how the 3 dimensions are exemplified in weather and climate, let's take a look at some rubrics that Amplify Science provides in helping you assess your students along these 3 dimensions. This is an oft overlooked part of the curriculum, so you may not have already seen this. Again, just follow along with me for now and you'll get a chance to navigate on your own shortly. So when you're on the curriculum site, if you go to these 3 horizontal lines and you scroll to the bottom, you want to go to Science Program Guide. And once you get there, go to Assessments. And under Assessments, you want to go to Rubrics. And here you'll find a bunch of adaptable rubrics for certain science and engineering practices. So as I scroll down, you see a rubric for constructing explanations, a teacher-facing one, and a student-facing one, engaging in argument from evidence, teacher-facing one, developing and using models, student-facing, and then teacher-facing, and then information literacy rubrics. And again, you can download these rubrics and they're adaptable. So these are rubrics that are available for you to use in pretty much any instructional model. So I'd like to give you a chance to go ahead and open up these rubrics. And we're going to focus, again, coming back to the Jamboard on the next page. If you can go ahead and go into each of these rubrics and post on the Jamboard after you take a look at them, what specific actions, occurrences, or artifacts will you be looking for to indicate that you know that that student is making progress? So for example, if I go to the Jamboard, I see, just go ahead and I'll stay on my slide, engaging in argument for evidence, responsive. There's a description and there's a no evidence, limited evidence, clear evidence. Arguments include a claim that fully addresses the problem or question at hand. The argument should go beyond describing an observed phenomena by proposing a claim that accounts for the how or why the observed phenomena occurred. So when I'm using this rubric, I'm going to be taking a look at, I really want to see, I'm going to put a post-it here, does the student answer the question how or why? So that's what I'll be looking at for this particular one. right here. And remember, for in Jamboard, if you haven't seen that already, you can also use pens. So that's what I would do right there. So if you can go ahead and take a look at the engaging an argument from evidence rubric and also the information rubric, and go ahead and post what exactly in terms of actions, occurrences, artifacts will you look for to indicate that students are actually making progress or providing clear evidence along these criteria. So I'll give folks a moment to go ahead and pull up those rubrics and start thinking about those. What's the evidence you'll be looking for? From you if you need me to retrace my steps to find that particular resource. If you need any clarity, please go ahead and come off of mute or chat. Some things are better set off of mute so I can better understand your needs. I'm always happy to help you. We'll come back together in about 2 minutes. Okay, so just heading off to the Jamboard, I see a lot of specific actions, occurrences, artifacts that you would be looking for when you are evaluating, let's say, a student's uh, argument, scientific argument in grade 3. So evidence, you're looking for evidence to support the claim. You're seeing if students are able to use the vocabulary correctly and express their ideas clearly for others to understand. Does the student post new claims or questions? For sure, that goes with the last row. Does the student use evidence such as referring to the model or material to support their thinking? For sure. Is the student's answer well written and clear to understand? Absolutely. Does the student, again, use evidence to support their claim? For sure. And did the student write in complete sentences, again, using scientific vocabulary? All important look-fors. And here, I didn't really expect for us to get started here. Really, the intention here is just for us to get started. And so you know that these particular rubrics, folks, are available for you to use. And specifically, they assess students on the science and engineering practices. So far, we've seen a resource that clearly outlines how the different dimensions are assessed in the unit specifically by cross-cutting concept, science and engineering practice, disciplinary core ideas. And then we went on to look at some rubrics that specifically assess some of the science and engineering practices that come up a lot. After this, we're going to briefly go into the specific assessment opportunities in weather and climate. Before we do that, I just want to see if there's any questions I've missed, or if folks have anything they want to share, ask, contribute off of mute. And I do thank you for your active engagement on the Jamboard. All right, seems like we're good so far. So let's go ahead and take a look at the other assessment system documents that we have right here, the progress build and assessment system and embedded formative assessments. I'm going to go ahead and live navigate for you. So when you're on the unit landing page, we of course have the progress build. Remember, the progress build is Amplify Science's learning progression. Teacher-facing version of what students are expected to know and understand by the end of the unit. Scroll down further, we have the assessment system document. I'm going to go ahead and open it up as a printable PDF. And the assessment system document, folks, gives you a table along with some other information, again, of the 3D alignment of each of the assessments and where they are. And the embedded formative assessment, folks, gives you a summary of all the formative assessments in that unit. Remember, each of the formative assessments has a look for now what. And also at the bottom, there's also a standards connection, which tells you specifically, again, which of the 3 dimensions does this particular assessment focus on assessing. So if you can use those assessment documents to go ahead and please meet me on these. We're going to go away from the Jamboard for now. And if you can meet me on these set of slides, which I'm about to drop into the chat right now. There you go. I'll wait for folks to go ahead and join me there. I see folks are trickling in. And you'll see here, folks, there's a set of slides for everyone in this session. You can go ahead and choose whichever set. These hummingbird placeholders separate the slides, and they're all duplicate slides. If you can go ahead and choose an assessment, now this is your slide, and include what do students learn in this lesson? What are the 3D connections? What are the look-fors and the now what? And then the second slide gives you a chance to really dig further into the assessment. More specifically, how will you adjust this assessment opportunity for your particular set of students? How will you adjust it in terms of, are you remote or hybrid or in person? And any tips, strategies, or tools that you have or ideas for assessments in these different instructional models. We can certainly all gain a lot from learning from each other. This is a collaborative work doc. We don't certainly expect to finish today, but this is somewhere you can come back and collaboratively work on together. So you can go ahead and choose any assessment. Remember, you can find your assessments. Let's say you want to go to the 3D assessment objectives. Let's say you're interested in the end of unit assessment. And you see that the end of unit assessment is in lesson 4.2. There's the two-part assessment. You can go ahead and navigate to that and fill in these parts. Or you can go to a formative assessment, remember, which you can find on the assessment system doc is probably the easiest place to find it. Remember this table if you're curious about a on-the-fly assessment. You see that the first on-the-fly assessment is occurring in 1.2 activity 3. So you would navigate to that assessment, 1.2. Let's say I want to do the first on-the-fly assessment, 1.2 activity 3. Go to the embedded formative assessment and you have your look for and now what there. So this is just a way for us to organize our thinking. I'll give folks a few minutes to get started on this. And again, the intention is not to complete this, but rather to really hone in and deepen our understanding of where we can find this information and how it will position us better to really gain a deeper understanding of students' progress in the unit along the 3 dimensions particularly. And also, I think this third box is especially useful. What have you been doing in this remote hybrid context to support you in helping you make your students' thinking more visible so you know how they're progressing? Please share your tips, ideas, strategies here so we can all benefit from learning from each other. I'll give folks just about under 5 minutes. Again, the intention is just to get started and then complete after today's session. Now I know folks probably just got started looking at these at the activity. Hopefully you had a chance to kind of gather how you would use these various resources to really assess the 3-dimensionality of your student progress during the unit. And I hope this is something that you all come back together collaboratively. Again, the Google Slides are open for everybody to come back. But I just wanted to end with just a brief review of if we can do a quick check for understanding. If you can go ahead and drop into the chat your response to this quick check for understanding. You can, of course, message me privately or message the entire group. Where do you locate the new 3D assessment objective overview? A, unit level material and prep. B, unit level 3D statements. C, unit level printable resources. Or D, unit level assessment systems. Just for us to get a sense of where you are. And yes, it is in fact in the printable resources. Differentiation. Where are the differentiation notes for the Unit 4 lessons? A, materials and prep, science background, digital teacher lesson level, or the teacher overview? Yes, in fact, it is the lesson level. And if you've been digging into the assessment, into the at-home units, there's a specific place where you can find assessment recommendations. And I'm just going to go ahead and remind you folks, it is the teacher's overview document. And then if you can just answer the last question for me. How well did we do in meeting the workshop goals today? I remember the workshop goals were to identify assessment opportunities that will help us assess our students along the 3 dimensions of the New York State Science Learning Standards. While you're doing that, hi Nancy. Nancy has a quick message for us.
Hi everyone, thank you Reshma for another, oops, sorry for the feedback. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. So thank you so much for another great session. I just put in the link to the attendance for today. For those of you that aren't already familiar with it, you have to use your @schools.nyc.gov account to access the attendance. And what happens when you do this is you will be accounted for CTLE credit. And so anybody that is in as admin or your name, not your first name and last name, you'll need to rename yourself in Zoom. So you could do that by selecting yourself as a participant on the bottom tab here in our Zoom session today. And you can click on your name, click more, and then rename yourself. So make sure that your name is what we know you as for the DOE as your teacher license. So that's important because otherwise they won't be able to tick and tie you back if you're in as admin or something else. So that is important today. If you have any issues, let me know. Here to help you, and I'll be on for a bit for the office hours with Reshma as well.
Great, thank you, Nancy, and thank you all for your input on those questions. As we close out, I do want to remind you of the NYC resources site. Resources from today's PD session and others will be posted there. The Amplify Science Program Hub, not only are your at-home resources there, but other videos and resources, short tutorials on various aspects of the program. And again, I know I introduced maybe to some of you some new resources today. So if you have any lingering questions, again, feel free to stick by during our open office hours after starting at 4 p.m. Here are the different numbers. Not only a number, but chat and also email that you can access for any pedagogical, non-pedagogical questions. I'm also going to put in the flyer for upcoming sessions in the doc. So if you're interested, you have any colleagues who are interested in joining, for our upcoming sessions in March. The flyer is in the chat. You'll find the registration links and upcoming sessions. So please do sign up and also distribute to your colleagues as you see fit. I'm just going to pause there to see if there's any final questions. And I will give you back another minute to sign into the attendance sheet since we didn't get a chance to do that at the beginning. And again, please remember that there's open office hours beginning at 4 p.m. Just go ahead and check the chat to see if I missed anything. Right, if there's no questions for now, that